Hallelujah, praise the Lord. It ought not to have happened.
Good news for Clico policyholders, but just how fast will the millions be paid out to the thousands of holders? We're following the policy payouts. And then, Junkanoo Carnival launches, but something's different this year. Find out how it's going to impact the parade. Also, find out the connection between this and this. And then,
coming up in the Bahamas tonight, hundreds turn out in search of a job.
It will only be about 1 in every 10 applicants picked.
I'm Jared Higgs. Find out the story straight ahead.
And then, it's all about Buddy. What new award did Buddy Heel pick up over the weekend? The Bahamas Tonight, the National Report, starts now.
Now in HD. Network presents The Bahamas Tonight. This portion of the news brought to you by BTC Every Day.
The government pursuing an agenda of change, this as it gives a progress report on its fiscal plan in Parliament today. Good evening, everyone. I'm Keishla Adderley. Topping the news tonight. During the mid-year budget statement, Prime Minister Perry Christie revealed that the deficit has been reduced by $398 million since his administration took office in 2012. He says this proves that his administration remains on course to achieve sustainable improvements in public finances. As he gave the report, he also spoke about the efforts of the government on Bahamas. Here's Clint Watson.
Based on the numbers halfway through the fiscal year and government's projections are on track, recurrent expenditure at $1.084 billion is at 51.7% of the full-year budget estimate, and capital expenditure at $91 million is at 38% of the budgeted amount. Revenue is up some 31% compared to the same period last year. The $217 million is primarily because of the value-added tax, although other taxes dropped as a result of VAT implementation. Import duties were down by $26.9 million year over year. Excise taxes were lowered by $16.3 million. Tourism taxes were down by $24.9 million, primarily reflecting the elimination of the hotel occupancy tax, and stamp taxes on realty transactions were down by $38.2 million.
The government has a well-conceived and well-articulated agenda for change and reform that it has pursued with great determination and consistency since coming to office. Ours is a plan that eschews capricious and opportunistic short-term quick fixes that invariably fail to produce lasting results. Instead, our action plan is targeted, is balanced, and focused on the attainment of sustainable economic and social progress for the benefit of all Bahamians.
Bahamas also featuring prominently in the Prime Minister's communication.
Make no mistake about it, we are dealing with an extremely complicated situation.
And despite the complexities of the Bahamas issue, Prime Minister the Honorable Perry Christie still remains optimistic that a solution is near. Mr. Christie says because of its enormous economic importance, the government remains fully engaged with all the relevant parties in finding suitable arrangements and moving forward for the completion and reopening of the stalled Bahamas project as quickly as possible.
Regarding the remobilization of the project, local subcontractors hired by the receiver's managers have been carrying out work for the completion of the convention center. The Exim Bank and receiver managers are making every effort to ensure completion of the convention center in time to accommodate the 2016 IDB annual meetings next month, April. With regard to the full remobilization arrangements, I am informed that intensive discussions are now taking place between China Exim Bank and CSEC, the construction company, on the detailed plans of remobilization.
Mr. Christie says a final agreement between China Exim Bank and China State Construction Engineering Company will have to go through internal procedures and obtain approval from regulatory authorities of both parties.
Once the remobilization arrangement is approved, CSEC will then be responsible for working out the construction timetable and plan, and by then China Exim Bank will be able to update the Bahamian government about the remobilization timetable and construction plan. The process of securing major investor operators is underway, and several very substantial groups have already been introduced to the government while the process is gathering pace.
Despite the marginal growth projected for the country, Prime Minister Christie says the Bahamas is expected to achieve growth and cut its debt. He adds that the success achieved to this point was possible without public sector layoffs or putting a dent in the provision of essential public services. Clint Watson, ZNS Network News.
Also from Parliament today, some good news for Clico policyholders who have been in limbo for more than 7 years since the company's collapse. Our Janaea Noel Ferguson tells us tonight the Prime Minister has given some assurances about payouts.
I can advise that the Ministry of Finance has formally requested the liquidator to commence payments before the end of this month. Yes, sir.
It's the news that Clico policyholders have been waiting to hear. Minister of Finance, Prime Minister the Right Honorable Perry Christie announcing that Clico liquidators and the government agreed to make all existing policyholders whole with the creation of a special purpose vehicle to assume insurance operations of Clico and to fully pay those who did not allow their policies to lapse during liquidation that started back in 2009.
Under the plan, surrendered policies, death benefits, medical claims, and staff pensions will be paid in full. Executive flexible premium annuity holders and surrendered pension policies will be settled in cash to a maximum of $10,000 per person, and the balance will be supported, Mr. Speaker, by a 7-year promissory note with interest at prime payable quarterly. The cash payouts are estimated at $16 million.
Prime Minister acknowledged that the former administration proposed to provide a conditional guarantee of $30 million to any entity that would purchase Clico. The proposal, however, did not guarantee that the policyholders would be made whole, and the company at this point was never bought. F&M Deputy Leader Peter Turnquest, while pleased with the resolution, questioned the source of funding for the $16 million payout.
The fact that there's no money in the budget for this leads to the question, again, are we reallocating funds for other projects to this kind of program?
State Minister for Finance Michael Halkias confirmed that the government will have to bear the cost. So that $16 million will come from the government by the end of the month, that payout.
I don't want to get into the figures now, but we want to begin the payments by the end of the month. We're working very hard to get it done, so we'll begin that process by the end of the month. And, by the summer, everything should be paid out. So we have some resources already, and then the promissory note will make up the balance of it.
Janaea Noel Ferguson, ZNS Network News.
Well, Clico policyholder and frontline advocate Bishop Simeon Hall commended the government on bringing a resolution to the Clico matter. He says the debacle shouldn't have happened and shouldn't happen again, adding that he's called for a national commission on insurance. Now, Hall says the Clico scenario proves that insurance companies aren't always forthcoming as they should be, and that they're able to exploit clients. He believes because policyholders were vocal, they got results.
It's not $1 million each person, but it is something. The principle is a person puts his money in an institution that was okayed and blessed by the government. And so the government is culpable in terms of we need to be more discerning, we need to check better on the companies we allow to operate in our country. Evil prospers when good people do nothing. And I think the scores of persons who agitate it are to be commended. We can't be quiet when your money has been used to buy racetrack and different things in Florida. No, the money should not have gone out of the country.
The government will introduce a new mortgage policy initiative which should set the framework for meaningful mortgage relief. During the mid-year budget statement, Prime Minister Christie said the government has held discussions with executives of clearing banks on mortgage relief, and the necessary steps will be taken to move forward with legislation before Parliament. Weighing in on this was the Minister of State for Finance, Michael Halkias.
We are now looking at something revamped that we hope that we can unveil very, very shortly. The long and short of it is, it was not an idle promise by the government. We made an attempt. We found that, the level of debt, particularly consumer debt, was much more than we realized and that the banks realized. And so we had to go back to the drawing board. It's not something that we've given up on. And we expect to come back very shortly with a revamped program.
In news from the Senate tonight, those 4 bills aimed at promoting gender equality were introduced in the Senate this morning. Government leader in the Senate, the Honorable Allison Maynard Gibson, says although they're simple, the bills serve a powerful purpose to ensure Bahamian daughters and sons have access to the same rights and opportunities under the law. Bill 1 will allow Bahamian women to automatically pass citizenship to children born abroad to non-Bahamian fathers. Bill 2 will allow a Bahamian woman married to a foreigner to secure him the same access to Bahamian citizenship as a Bahamian man married to a foreigner. Bill 3 allows an unmarried Bahamian man to pass citizenship onto his child born to a foreign mother, and Bill 4 will make it unconstitutional to discriminate against someone because they are male or female. Maynard Gibson says the bills will strengthen families, society, and the nation at large.
Our children, our sons and our daughters deserve this basic fairness. Should the bills receive the 3/4 or preferably the unanimous support of the Senate, they will then go in a referendum to change the Constitution to the people of the Bahamas, who will have the final word.
Leader of opposition business in the Senate, Senator Bethel, says today marks an important day in the forward movement of the country and a movement toward what is hoped to be historic days ahead. He says although some on social media are suggesting the passage of the bills may signal the beginning of the end, that is not the case.
I say no, to the contrary. It is the end of the beginning. The beginning, hopefully, with the approbation and votes of the Bahamian people, of a new Bahamas based on a fundamental principle that men and women are equal before the law. That no Bahamian should have less rights, let's say in the area of marriage, than any other Bahamian, based on whether they are a man or a woman.